I wanted to show you some technique ideas on how to use these wonderful new background stamps. So this is from the new Creative Stamps collection. It's the background stamp collection from CraftStash. So this is Deco Brushstrokes. I really like this one because I think it's got lots of potential for lots of different ideas. So I'm just going to show you a few ideas that I had when I got hold of the stamp sets. So what I want to do for this technique is use a stamping platform. Now the reason I think a stamping platform is a good idea when using large background stamps like this is that it's often really difficult to get the right pressure first time to get the full stamp impression. So what I'm going to use is my stamping platform, and then I know that if it doesn't stamp perfect first time, which often it won't, then I can just come back over and stamp again. So I'm just lining this up where I want it on the piece of card. I'm using a larger piece of card that I'm then going to cut down. So I'm just lining it up to give myself a sort of edge. And then I'll just move my magnets. So I'm going to pick the stamp up first, giving a nice bit of pressure to make sure there's no air bubbles. Now it's going to pick up my card because it's going to be tacky, but I don't mind that. So I'm just going to let that peel back off, pop my magnet back on. Make sure it's all tucked in nicely. So for this first technique, I'm actually going to use a Versamark water stamp pad. So this is a clear transparent stamp ink to go on my stamp so that I can grab hold of the clear embossing powder that I'm going to use. Now what this will do is it will give me a lovely clear embossed image that I can then go on with watercolours or pigment powders, and in this case I'm actually going to use infusions. So I'm just inking this up now, making sure I've got a really good coverage because it's really important to move that ink pad around when using large background stamps like this. So once you are happy, you just come in and give it a really good press to make sure you have got the whole stamp on there. So then once you're happy with that, just peel it down, and if it's a bit sticky, just push your finger on there and peel it off. So take your stamped piece of card, move your stamp pad out the way. Now it's often handy now at this stage to have either a folded piece of card or something underneath so that when you're shaking on the powder you can start to tap it off and you'll see hopefully where it's catching the Versamark ink. So that's actually stamped really well first time. I'm really pleased with that. So I'm just tapping on the powder. Just shake it on. So once you're happy, and hopefully you can see that sparkling there, this is just the clear embossing powder. You would take this then, a heat gun to it, heat it all up, but just to speed things up, I've already done that stage for you. So I'm going to move that out of the way, move my embossing powder and my ink, and in I have done a heat embossed stamped image. There you go. Okay, so that's all ready to go, and at this stage I'm also going to bring in a mat. Bring it that way around, and that's just to save my table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this infusions, and I'm going to use Violet Storm, and I'm just going to tap it over the image, and I don't use very much. You can see there's not very much there. I'm going to take a flat brush, dip it in some water, and I'm just going to stroke back side to side, and you can see that gorgeous colour you get from the infusion powder. So I'm just going all the way up and down along, and if you want a bit more pigment, you want a bit more colour, you can just tap a bit more on and start brushing side to side again. But I really like how that looks. I think that looks absolutely gorgeous. Now the great thing is you can use it any way up this brush stroke. You can use it to the side, up like that, down, but I like it like this because I feel like it looks a bit like the flowers, the petals poking down, so I like it that way. What I'm going to do next is just take a piece of tissue, and I'm just going to push over it just so that any of the residue of the ink that was on these embossed areas has now cleared off. And if you miss any, just give it a little stroke and you'll take it off there. So that is just beautiful, really lovely background. So you could use it just like this, or you could trim it down. Now what I've done is I've simply matte and layered it, trimmed it down, and just added a sentiment on top and a few little Nouveau drops. So something as simple as that, a bit of clear embossing with the background image, and you can create a gorgeous card like that. Now I've got another idea that I wanted to share with you, so I'm just going to take that and put it out the way. And the next idea, again, you're going to need your stamping platform, and you're going to need your stamp, so that's already there ready for me. And this time I'm using a piece of card that is cut down to size already, so I'm just going to make sure I've got my stamping platform in place. I'm going to put my magnets just on the side. Now some people do find this difficult because there's no extra grab for the magnets to hold on to, but you can, if you want to, just cut this down to size after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some of my Memento inks. Now often you would just stamp the whole thing in one colour, but what I want to do is just do something a bit different. I want to bring in lots of different shades, so I'm just going to bring a bit of the darker green around the outside, and then I'm going to bring in some of the lighter green. Now I'm not being very specific as to where I put this, I'm just going for it really, just bringing it in different areas, and then I'm going to bring in some of the yellow. To get a really gorgeous shaded background. If there's any areas that you think you've missed, just go back in with any of your colours. My favourite one has got to be the pear tart, so I'm just going to go back in with that one and catch any areas that I think I've missed. So once you're happy, I'm just going to clean that bit off there. Come in with your stamp pad and give it a really good press. Now this is where you need to give a lot of pressure and make sure you've pressed all over the stamp, just so that you can get the best possible print that you can. And as I say, with a stamping platform it's not so bad, because if you do miss a bit, then you can just re-ink it and come back down again. So I'm going to check that. I'm really happy with that. So that first time has given me such a gorgeous shading of colours, really lovely brush stroke effect background. So I'm going to move this one out of the way. I'm going to pop that one down there, and I'm just going to bring in a couple of more stamps. So this is just a pineapple, a sentiment, and I'm just going to need some scrap bits of card. I'm just going to check that that's going to be perfect. So I'm going to put my background just up there for now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of the cantaloupe, and I'm just going to rub it onto the piece of card there. So I've just got a little bit of the ink there. Then what I'm going to do is take my pineapple, and it's just the bottom area that I'm going to ink up in the potter's clay. So I'm just inking that one up. These stamps are Imagine Design Create stamps. They are the A6 Feeling Fruity stamp set, I believe. So I'm just going to ink up there in Pear Tart, one of my favourites, on the top of the pineapple. So I'm just inking that up, and I'm just going to light over the top, so it's just catching a bit of that yellow and then giving it a press there. So as you can see, I've got the yellow here and the green there, and then I've got the potter's clay over the top. So then I'm just going to snip that one off, and then I'm just going to cut it out. So I'm going to do it really rough and quickly whilst I've got you watching. I should have pre-cut some of these before I started filming. That would have been a lot less boring for you, but never mind. Let's just cut this one out so you can see what it is I'm doing. Now I'm being really rough on this bit here. You could use much better scissors than I am, and these are just really basic scissors. And if you've got some nice little scissors, you'll get much better non-creased spikes of your pineapple. Let's have a look if I can just quickly do the next bit. Now I just wanted to show you the next bit, which is why I'm rushing this pineapple here. Now the next bit that I tend to do, just to add a bit more colour and make it a bit more fresh, is come back in and press over the top of the spikes in the green. So you can see that's how I get that shading and that gorgeous depth of colour there. And then I come back in with the yellow as well. So just make sure I've got the cantaloupe, and then I just press in, and it just gives a really lovely shading effect on the pineapple, and I just think it looks much better that way. So I really like this little stamp because I think it's really fun and funky, and it goes really well with the pattern there of the brush strokes. So as you can see on this card, I've actually decided to keep the brush strokes going up because I think it looks like the spikes on the pineapple. Looks pretty cool and funky. So that's one of the pineapples, and then what I would do is do another one there, and then I'm just going to grab my VersaFine black ink. I'm going to ink up my sentiment, and I'm just going to stamp onto a piece of card. Let's turn that one over. So as I say, you can take much more time and do this properly when you're doing it, but just for speed, I would lie that one on there, one of my pineapples there, and then I would, as you can see here, add another pineapple. So I've got 2 pineapples now, and this sentiment I used You're So Sweet because that one comes in with the Feeling Fruity stamp set. And again, you can just see the blends of the colours. It's always going to be different every time you ink it up. So that's just one way of using the beautiful background brushstroke stamp. So that's one of the other ideas. Now I've also done one here where I have inked it in different shades going up through, and then I've just cut them up and used them as a sort of windowed background. So that's another idea. But I've got another shading in different colours and just some simple balloons and a little bit of glitter. And then this one here I've done in gold. I think it's got a real Art Deco feel to this one. And it looks really lovely with the sort of the music notes and things. So embossing with this particular background stamp looks amazing. And then if I just bring back in the first project that we did with the clear embossing as well, you can see that you can use it facing down to look like flowers, or up for the sort of spikes here, or the Art Deco feel. So that is just a few ideas, a few ways of using this fantastic new brushstrokes background stamp from CraftStash. As always, thank you for watching, and if you've got any questions, please just give me a message, and happy crafting!